Hello, everybody. This is a demo of a really nice, easy way to make a frequency table and histogram using the pivot table function in Excel. This is Dr. Russ. So what we're going to do, first of all, are follow the instructions. What we're looking at here are data from that large data set that I've been collecting from students over the last few years. And we have first here the number of Facebook friends for all these people who have been surveyed. And these are the data we'll be working with. So in A, we're asked to find the minimum, maximum, and range. So let's go ahead and make this a nice sort of an organized way of doing this. So here's our minimum. And oops, let's write our maximum here. Makes it nice and easy for me to grade and range. So I don't want to try and eyeball this whole data set to find the minimum. So I'm going to use the minimum function equals min. We'll put an opening parenthesis to tell Excel what we want it to look at or what range of data to search. Place the cursor in the top cell and hold down Control, Shift, the down arrow to select all of those cells and hit Enter. So once again, that formula looks like this. And in order to select many cells, you're going to use it is Control and Shift and arrow, whatever direction you want to go to, and that will select all the cells until the next blank cell. Let's do the same for maximum. We'll go equals max. That's the formula for maximum, and put our opening parenthesis. We'll use that same Control-Shift arrow process by placing the cursor in the top shell, Control-Shift arrow to select all of them, and Enter. And so now we find out that the maximum is 3,602, the minimum is 0, and so the range is always maximum minus minimum. So let's take maximum minus minimum, even though it's very evident that it will be 3,602. So now we're done with A. Now we're going to use one step to create this frequency chart and histogram. So follow these instructions carefully. I'll put B here. And let's go ahead. I'll place my cursor right here, but that doesn't really matter. We're going to go to the Insert menu. And you'll see pivot table, recommended pivot table, table. And when you scroll all the way down a little distance, you'll see this pivot chart. And so let's go ahead and select that and select pivot chart and pivot table. Now it's asking us, well, what data range do we want to use for this table? So let's go ahead and highlight all of this. And let's select including the headings. So we'll start on person and Facebook friends and use our Control-Shift down arrow to select that range. And now we've got that whole range selected. Now by default, it's going to want to put it in a new worksheet, but go ahead and click Existing Worksheet, and let's put it right where it belongs, which is here after our letter B. So we'll select that cell and just click OK. And now you'll come up with this sort of mysterious looking thing. And it's quite simple to work with. So over on the right, you'll see these two boxes, our two categories, person and Facebook friends. What we wanted to do is to sum up all the people. So let's take person and put it down here in values, and that little sigma sign that looks like a sort of like an uppercase E, that means sum. So it's going to sum up all those people. And what do we want it to organize it by? We wanted to organize it by Facebook friends. So let's put this in the axis. Don't worry if you don't understand all these terms yet, that will become clear. And now look what we have, a big mess. We can see that Excel created all these different values, way too many values for what we need. So let's put these into clusters or groups or bins. So click in one of the cells with data, and then you should see up here something that says Pivot Table Analyze. So click on that, and we're going to then click Group. So when we click on this button up here that says Group Selection, it's going to allow us to enter our bin size. So what we're going to tell it to do is start at 0. And let's round this up. I think a nice way to round it up would be to 4,000, because that would allow us to have bins of 500, 8 bins of 500. So we're going to tell it start at 0, end at, well, it says 3602. So let's just unclick that and type in 4,000. And let's tell it to go in 500, in increments of 500. We can see what it looks like. If we don't like it, we can change these settings. So let's click OK. Okay, very nice. So now we have bins 0 to 499, 500 to 999. These look like really good bins. There's no overlap, so that's a good thing. We can see we have a lot of people in that 0 to 500 range, much fewer in these larger bins. We could make some adjustments there if we wanted to, but for now, let's just keep it simple. So now we have a nice looking chart, and let's go ahead and click on the data cells and do that thing that we do to close the gap. So we're going to right click while those cells are highlighted. Let me repeat this then. So we click off of it. We can click on this and then place your arrow over the one of the bars. And from there, when that is highlighted, when all of these bars have these dots around it, then you can right click and go to Format Data Series. On the side menu, you'll see this data series, and there are 3 options here. You can see you can change the color, you can change some of the special effects, but we're not interested in those things. We just want these series options because we want to close the gap, because we know now that a histogram has a gap, has no gap, although a bar chart does have a gap. So this looks like a really nice chart. And of course, we can give it a title. Okay, we can call it Chart 1. Number of Facebook friends of people in our sample. And that kind of seems pretty clear, I guess. But we're not quite done yet, because we have something more that we have to add. We know that a frequency table doesn't have much meaning without a percent. So let's go ahead and add a percent column. So we'll be adding that column by going ahead and selecting our data set. And you'll probably have something different in your menu. So to get back to this initial item that we were at, we're going to go, while we have these cells highlighted, we're going to click on Pivot Table Analyze. And then we're going to go over and click on this field list. Okay, and then we should see this screen appear once again. So in order to add our percent column, we're actually going to be dragging the person down here and making a second column that looks just like the first column. So what we want to tell it now is to change these data to percent. So we're going to go ahead and select these data and right click, and we will go Show Values As. So once again, I selected the cells in these new that we just created. I right clicked and I chose Show Values As. And all we want is the percent of the grand total. So Show Values As, percent of grand total, and click. Now we can see we have our percents. I still am not very happy with these headings, so I'm going to change this one. I'm going to double click on it and change it to say frequency. That seems a little better. And I'm going to change this one. I can double click on it or just change it up here in the function bar. And I'm going to write percent. So I like that a little better. What I don't like is what happened in my frequency table. You can see that Excel is trying to show the percents in here, and that doesn't look very good to me. I don't want that to be showing in my graph. So what we're going to do is just hide it. So let's go ahead and click on these columns once again and right click. And right now we can see that we have series frequency selected. We're going to change this and select the series percent. And so now we can see what's showing up here, and we're going to then go ahead and format the cells with this with this selected, with these invisible ones selected. So I'm going to place my cursor into one of those invisible columns that show nothing. And I'm going to go to this Format Data Series. Once again, I want to, this time, instead of being in Series Options, I'm going to go ahead and go Fill in Line because I'm just going to get rid of it. I'm going to put Fill, no fill. I'm going to put Border, no line. And then I'm going to go back into the Series Options and click on the Series Overlap and change that all the way up to 100%. Then it won't show up for us anymore. And we have the nice histogram showing in our graph. Now we can move this aside and put it down here just by grabbing it. So once again, if you're having a little trouble, sometimes when you're doing this, you accidentally click in here and end up moving this. Oh, you didn't want to do that. Just click Undo way up here in your top menu. If you do something you didn't mean to do, then click off that cell, click on it again, and when it's just outlined, there's nothing else selected, you can drag it where you need it. And to make this nice and neat, I'm going to put it right here and write C. There is our histogram. I think I'm going to add histogram into the title. Histogram of number of Facebook friends of people in our sample. And that looks pretty good to me. Our last step is to describe the shape of the histogram. So let's go ahead and describe it. This is a non-normal, skewed right histogram with no evidence of kurtosis. I don't see fat tails. That's what we'd be looking for kurtosis. And that's adequate for describing it. If we want to be really neat, we could just delete that percent and then we just see frequency. And this looks pretty good. And this is a quicker way to work with large data sets. Now, you can stop here and that's just fine. You also might think that these groups aren't really very informative because most of our data is in these less than 500. And so there are other options that we could do to create a category that allows us to have, like, say, we want to cluster all of these more than 2,000 into one kind of category. We can also do things like that. For now, though, this is enough for today. So let's stop here and say this is good enough.